Hi, Tricia here, and we're back with another essential skills, and today's essential skill is masking fluid. So we're going to have a look at how it works, what it is, and how we can apply it to our surface. Let's get started. Masking fluid today. I've got two different types of masking fluid here. One that is got a bluey tint to it and one that's got a yellowy tint, although it's quite creamy. A masking fluid is a rubbery latex type of medium which is used mostly when you're doing watercolours, and what it does is it masks off an area so that you can continue painting, and then you can remove that masked area and it will take you back to whatever the colour was underneath. So in this instance we've got white paper, so if we put masking fluid on, when it dries we can paint over the top, and at the end of our painting we'll take the masking fluid off and we'll have white sections left. You can see here this one specifically says contains latex, and it turns into quite a rubbery solution. So when you get it, it's quite liquidy, and you need to make sure that you're constantly sealing it up, but it's very liquidy in there, very runny. Can you see that there? But when it dries, and this is the little bit that I've recently just taken out of my lid, when it dries, you can see that's liquidy there, but see how rubbery that is. Yeah, that is what it goes to. Not that thick though, that's a bit extreme. So when it dries, it will go hard. So in a bit, this will dry. So let's cover this over. So because it turns into a rubbery liquid, you need to be really careful when you're using your brushes with it. So we don't want to use our watercolour brushes. And if we do use a brush, what we want to do is we want to coat it first in some soap. So get your soap, and you just need to dampen the surface of the soap, and then you're going to rub your brush all over it. Okay, so you see there you've got that soap bubbles on, so let's wipe those off. There we go. So we've still got quite a soapiness to our bristles, and we've just covered the whole of our bristles in soap there. And then when we dip into our masking fluid, we can paint away, fill in areas that we want to keep white, and then you need to straight away, when you finish, go and wash it off, and that little soapy covering will mean that the masking fluid will slide straight off, hopefully. Be really careful to wash your brushes off properly, because any masking fluid will get stuck in the bristles right down the bottom, and it'll really ruin your brushes. So use an old brush, slightly stiffer brush if you want to. But the other thing that you can use is something like this, which is like a little dip pen. So I've got a little dip pen that I've cut. I've got a little bamboo one here, and I've got one of those weird burger skewer things. So and you can lift it out and you can work with it. Not quite as much control, but you can get fine lines with it. Let's go with my brush here. So create different shapes. The other thing that I can use is a liner pen, or a ruling pen, or a mapping pen. And if you see these two metal bars here, I've got this nut, this little screw here, and as I tighten it, the two bars close up, and as I loosen it, they open up wider. And this is like a little pen, so when I dip into my masking fluid, this centre here will be a little well, a little reservoir that will hold the masking fluid, and then depending on the thickness at the tip here, how fine or how wide I've got it will depend how thick the line is when it comes out. So let's make it finer. And now let's dip in, and we can create some really long fine lines. You can see there's a tiny bit left in there. The really nice thing about this is because it's actually made of metal, then once the masking fluid has dried, all we do is we just rub over it like that, and we can just peel it straight off, and then that's ready to go again. Okay, so some of our lines that we did are now dry. This one's still, because it's a big globule of it, it's still a bit wet, but this one here is dry. And if you see, all I have to do is peel it off. So once it's dry, I can paint over this, I can work over it, I can do whatever I want, and then at the very end of my painting I can just rub at it and I can peel off to reveal all my lighter layers, all my whites underneath. One thing to be careful of is make sure that you put your lid on your masking fluid and that it's nice and tight, because it does want to turn into the rubber itself, so if any air gets to it. So don't leave the lid off while you're working, you know, especially if you're working for a long time, an hour or so, because what you're doing is you're making your masking fluid dry out. The other thing that they suggest is not to shake your masking fluid. So you can see here in this one that I've got my masking fluid in here, and then the actual pigment that was originally put in has settled to the bottom. The reason why you don't want to keep shaking your masking fluid is because that very fine layer is going to coat all the inside. The air inside the bottle is going to dry it out, and then you keep doing it and keep doing it, and so on and so on, and all it's doing is it's just creating like a little thick skin all the way around. So you just don't want to keep shaking it up and getting all those air bubbles in and drying your masking fluid out. It will over time not work as well, if that makes sense, just because the age of it, and that you keep taking the lid off and putting it back on, and you're constantly getting that air through it all the time, it will sort of go thicker and just not as nice, not as sort of runny and creamier. So be careful about that. But I mean, I've had this one, I don't know, I've had this one a few years now and it's fine. So yeah. Okay. Visit my website for your art resources. Follow me on social media, like this video and subscribe to my channel for more art demos.